Okay. Sounds great. Obviously, we're excited to be headed to Tampa this week. Looking forward to playing in the Super Bowl again. Another chance to bring a Lombardi Trophy back to Kansas City. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Let's go first to Sam Mellinger. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Clark. This is the second straight Super Bowl, right, where there's been a lot of questions about why Eric Bieniemy is still your offensive coordinator. Have you talked to other owners? I think it's 14 interviews. Correct me if I'm wrong, but have you talked to any other owners about, why he keeps getting passed over? And Brad, I'll have a quick follow if I can.
To answer the question specifically, I've not talked to anybody who's interviewed him, so I don't know that I can really comment on what their thought process is.
Okay. It's obviously this is connected a lot with race, right? The NFL has made steps to promote more Black head coaches. Do you have a theory? Like, why do you think there are not more Black head coaches in the league?
Yeah, I really don't have a theory. I think at the end of the day, it's about creating opportunities. And for the coaches to have those opportunities, they need to be in the right spots. Whether that's a coordinator position or a quarterback position. And we're seeing more of that, which is good. And I hope down the road that'll result in more Black head coaches in the league.
Let's go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Clark, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Adam.
Good. Hey, just understanding you have a big game you're trying to win on Sunday, but I was wondering if you could offer a peek ahead of what 2021 might look at as far as the roster. I mean, will we see run it back three? What do you anticipate this team looking like in a general sense next season?
I'm going to focus on trying to run it back one this weekend. With the game against the Bucks. But this offseason, I think like last year is going to be a challenging one. At this point, I don't think we really have any kind of idea about what the salary cap is going to be. We know there's a floor of $175 million. The league has the very difficult job of trying to project local revenues next year. And I think in the relevant time frame for the cap to be set in March, that's going to be really challenging. Certainly, we'll try to keep as many of our guys together as possible. We've got a good core of talented young players, and we'd like to keep them in Kansas City. But I'm sure, like every team, that will have some challenges if the salary cap ends up being closer to $175 million than not.
Let's go next to Herbie Teope. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Clark. Good afternoon. Just a quick follow-up on Sam Mellinger's earlier question. I remember last year at the Super Bowl, you had told us that it was going to be a point of emphasis at the last ownership meeting to the discussion on minority coach hiring. And I know Roger Goodell had mentioned it also last year at the Super Bowl. How do you think the league did with this past current cycle with that? And do you anticipate it being another topic of discussion at this upcoming owners meeting?
Yeah. I do believe it'll be a continuing discussion, not only this year, but for years to come. I think we made some progress this past year. One of the dynamics that was weird is we were never in a room together where we could discuss it. We had to do it by Zoom. But I think we made some very good changes in terms of rewarding teams who have coaches in coordinator or other positions who end up getting hired as head coaches and general managers. So I think that was a good change because it does incentivize you to give those guys an opportunity within your organization. And just going back to my comments earlier, I think the more Black and other minority coaches that are in those positions, I think will result in more head coaches and general managers of color down the road.
Let's go next to Miss Karen Kornacki. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, hi, Mr. Hunt. How are you?
I'm great. Great to see you.
It's great to see you, sir. Hey, I remember a couple of years ago, you said anything short of the Super Bowl is a disappointment. Well, now you win one. Now you're trying to win another one. I mean, the bar is set so high that I just wonder, as you look at this team and what you've put together, the thoughts of what it took to get here, how excited you are to see them try to do this again. And, the expectations, is it going to be winning a Super Bowl every year?
Well, we're obviously thrilled to be back in the big game. And part of what makes it so special is the long road that it took us to get back there for the first time in 50 years last year. That's far too long. And, there were a lot of ups and downs on the roller coaster. And, when you're in those dips where things are really, going poorly, you wonder if you're ever going to be able to do it. And I just couldn't be more pleased with the job that Andy and Brett and their staffs have done in building this championship team. And as this year has shown, it's a team that's not only capable of winning one Super Bowl, but hopefully winning many. And you're right, the bar has been set very high. And just like with fans, when you have some success and the Super Bowl becomes the standard, that's the way we'll approach it. We'll be gunning to get back to the Super Bowl every year, and we're lucky to have Coach Reed, with us for a number of years. Patrick Mahomes signed up on a 10-plus year contract, so we're going to have a window that I think is very, very long, and we'll have a chance to hopefully get back.
Let's go next to Vahe Gregorian. Go ahead, Vahe.
Hey, Clark. Sort of along the lines of what Karen asked, I wonder how you feel these last two seasons have sort of reinvigorated the sense of the Chiefs in pro football's sort of pecking order in history. And Brad, I'll have one quick follow-up too.
Well, I think the biggest lesson there is what you see with other teams who've had sustained success or made it to multiple Super Bowls over various decades. And you can look at the national following that those teams have. Franchises like the Packers, like the Steelers, like the Cowboys, like the 49ers. And certainly when you go 50 years without getting back to the big game, we may have been, very relevant on a regional basis, but we weren't really relevant nationally. Well, that's now changed. And our fan base has absolutely exploded on a national basis, and we also have a lot of international fans as well.
And it's sort of related to Clark. I wonder in what ways maybe the last 2 years have sort of added to an emotional connection with your father and what he did, and how much that's been part of your own pride in this.
Yeah, well, every year when the Super Bowl has rolled around since my dad passed away, our family obviously thinks about him, so much because he had such a big hand in making the Super Bowl what it is today, giving the game its name, giving the game its Roman numerals. And frankly, through the creation of the AFL and the merger, he helped create the game. So we always think a lot about him. But there was something missing. And what was missing was the Chiefs participating in that game after first winning the trophy that has his name on it. So now getting to do that 2 years in a row, so special for our family. As I think about really the last 12 or 13 months, those moments standing on a stage in Arrowhead and receiving the trophy with his name on it are right there at the top.
We'll go next to Nick Jacobs. Go ahead, Nick.
Clark, I'm curious for you. What are you going to remember most about this season, minus what may happen Sunday? What are you going to remember most about this year, what this team went through, and the shots that it took from other teams, as well as having to navigate a pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that unfortunately all of us are going to remember when we look back at this year are the challenges posed by COVID. And, I should first mention that, we're fortunate to be playing a game that's entertainment for people. And I know that this year has been very, very tough for many people, both from an economic standpoint and also for families that have lost loved ones. And, that's, I think, what we'll all remember first. So from a sports standpoint, it was the adversity of figuring out how to play the whole season during a pandemic, which was something that we were frankly very doubtful about in the spring. We didn't know whether we were going to be able to play the season or play it in an uninterrupted manner. And so I think the job that our players, coaches, and entire organization have done of following the NFL's protocols that have helped get us through the year. I think that's what I'm going to remember most. In a normal year, I think you would point to the job that the team did on a week-to-week basis of raising its game to a level that was good enough to win that week. And with the exception of the Raiders game, the starters were able to do that every week. And that's very hard for a championship team because it's easy to get complacent. But our guys found a way to do it, every week. And I think that's a real credit to them.
We'll go to our final two, starting with Dave Scritta. Go ahead, Dave.
Good afternoon, Clark. You kind of put on your backwards thinking cap, and I'm going to ask you to put your forwards thinking cap on. Going into this next year, what are the biggest issues that are facing the league in your mind? You mentioned the salary cap sort of obliquely earlier. That's obviously a huge one for everybody, but in your mind, what are the biggest issues that are facing the NFL as we head into 2021?
Well, I hate to talk more about the pandemic, but I think it's the lingering impact of the pandemic on the National Football League. The salary cap will have a big impact, not only on the Chiefs, but all 32 NFL franchises. Will have to pretty quickly begin planning for the 2021 season. There'll be a question about OTAs. Are we going to go back and be able to have normal OTAs? Are they going to be virtual again? What's the draft going to look like? Is it going to be, an in-person event, or is it going to be largely virtual like last year? So we'll have to get right back into all of those discussions. I hope by the time we get to the season that we're talking about having, largely full stadiums, but there's no guarantee on that.
We'll go last to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Clark, thanks for the time. I actually had wanted to ask specifically about that kind of timeline too, as far as, what your optimism is for the league trying to return to some sense of normalcy when it comes to OTAs and the things that were made virtual last year. And also, I'm curious, when do you think that there might be the timeline for the announcement that we may or may not have a 17th game in 21?
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it to the medical professionals on determining what we're going to be able to do in person versus virtual, because every time I've tried to predict that, I've been wrong. Certainly with the rollout of the vaccine, I think we have a legitimate hope that as the year goes along, things will be more normal. And maybe by the time we get to training camp looks more like a normal year. But I'll have to leave it to the medical experts on that. With regard to the 17th game, it was a provision that was negotiated into the CBA with the players a year or so ago. I think it could happen as early as 2021. The league's not made an announcement on that, but that's something that I know they're thinking about and working on.
Clark, we appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.